Oh, hi. Thanks for dropping in. Welcome. This is the 13th installment of Effluvium on December 13th, 2022. The time is now 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I welcome you all. So far, we have 9 people who are tuned in. Gonna say hello to some of the folks who are coming into the chat right now. Hello, my friend. Sniff, sniff. Hello, Mr. Clean. Welcome. And hi to you, Fernando. You are all beautiful. And yeah, we have some great guests for this installment. We have Thomas, who is also known as Earlygreek. And he has a beloved YouTube channel, which he doesn't update nearly as much as he used to. But maybe we can twist his arm to add some new content to his YouTube channel. He still appears now and then on Instagram as well. And he's suggested a few great topics for discussion. We also have Nick. He is also referred to as Scent Remix. He has a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and he will be briefing us on his experience at ScentXplore in New York City this past week. And of course, we have Ryan, my comrade and regular panelist, who will be joining us as well. Hello. Hi. And as always, I'm going to be starting with 3 first impressions. And the 3 first impressions that we have all are samples that are courtesy of Alex at Perfume Temple. I have run through just about all of the samples that he so graciously had sent to me. And these 3 are as follows. I will be testing out one from Anatole Baton, which is Le Scandalous. And if any of you pay attention to my Instagram, I am doing a tuberose week there. And I figured it would be appropriate to also do a first impression of what is apparently a tuberose heavy scent. And that is Le Scandalous. Next, we have Bois Imperial, which is a Quentin Biche composition from Essential Parfums. I think I have that correct. Yep, Essential Parfums. Know very little about this one. I just looked it up. In fact, I had to look it up because Alex had only labeled it Bois Imperial. I had to find out exactly what the house was. So that will be the second one. And then the third is from Hermès, a Clandestine Nagel composition, Eau de Citron Noir, which I was curious about for some time. And this will give me an opportunity to sniff what it's all about. So we'll get this started. The first one being Anatole Le Breton. Scented Moments. Hello, welcome. Thanks for dropping by. And here's our guest, Thomas. He'll be joining us shortly. We'll have him in and Nick at about 7:20 p.m. And for now, Le Scandalous, which I will spray here. Ooh, it's a tuberose. It has that sort of oily, milky, languorous white floral. Ooh, and this isn't conventionally pretty. Ooh, it's a little naughty. Oh boy. There's some heavy like citrus terpenes too. If I get really close, it's really medicinal. It's really camphorous. But also I'm getting some sort of like Bala Versailles vibes from it too. I love stuff like this. And for some reason, I'm thinking of Flintstone vitamins. This smells like what actually, the cotton ball that you take out. It smells like that. The cotton ball that keeps the Flintstones vitamins fresh. But the cotton ball is, I don't know. It's in a bouquet of really thick, syrupy, unctuous tuberose blossoms. Divisive. I love divisive, so I can't wait to see what my reaction is. I agree. This is every one of them so far. Every one of them has captured my attention. Like, there's nothing, mediocre about them. They're just really outstanding. Every one of them that I've smelled. I mean, first impressions. Good evening, Basic Morlaco. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. A little bit because of because isn't it kind of like Mandarin? Like Mandarin and orange, Oyedo? Yeah, totally. Hello. Hi, Hannah. Yeah, the Flintstone vitamins it's dissipating, but now it's just chalky and gluey, pasty. It smells almost forbidden. There is a dirtiness. There's a dirty undercurrent, dirty undertones, dirty underwear. You could just put under in front of any word. Yeah. Yeah, this will knock your knickers off. I love that one so far. And I don't throw the word love around all that much with newer fragrances. I think that I'm a bit cynical, but every time I smell an Anatole Louboutin, I'm captivated. All right. Next, we have Bois Imperial from Essential Parfums. Sprayed on this hand. This is a Quentin Biche. All right. Okay. It's really quenching. I don't know if you know what I mean by quenching. It's almost like mouth-watering. Mm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do like to educate when I can, but I'm being educated just as much as I'm educating. Thank you, Anuj. Hello. Hello, Oski. Oscar the Grouch, one of my favorites. Yes, please. Thank you, Dan. If you guys can smash the like button, as the kids say, do a little thumbs up. Yeah. Let's just see how many I can get. Also, if you'd be so kind, if you do have the money to spare, I do have Buy Me a Coffee. It's the website. Let me bring it up here. This will help me out because I do want to expand the live stream presence and upgrade to a subscription that enables me to do a lot more than what I'm currently able to do with the free one. So if you could, one is $5, or you could do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 if you're generous. If you want to be my sugar daddy or sugar mama, hey, go for it. When I get that quenching, mouth-watering thing, sometimes it's balsamic notes. Yeah. This is a basil. There's like basil going on here. And basil's a tough one in perfumery too, but I get basil leaves I mean, it is a bois, a woody scent. There's definitely some woods, some sandalwood, some cedarwood. But it is there is some green herbs going on here. A little bit of that, the herbs from the mint family, but not necessarily mint, which are a lot of essential oil producing herbs, actually. Yeah, I kind of find this one pretty nice too. Wow. Usually it's at least the second one where I'm a bit taken aback and not too pleased, but this is another really good one. All right. Putting Bois Imperial to the side. And Eau de Citron Noir from Hermes. It's right over here. Hmm. It's like a ooh, I just started to pick up something else here. Yes, it's definitely orange. There's orange rind, orange pith, orange zest. Never use a zester and get a little bit of zest into, I don't know, if you're doing a cocktail or you're making some sort of dessert or recipe that requires some zest. I get that. Yeah, that smell of the oils. But then there is a lot of like the leafiness, like petitgrain leaves, you know. And I am picking up a sort of this phenolic background. And if my memory serves me, there's supposed to be a smoky element. So I think this is where it starts to come in. Mm. It's kind of dusky, shadowy. It did not start bright, and it isn't bright, and I don't think it's going to get any brighter. This is like a dusky, shadowy citrus, if ever one existed. Wow, 3 out of 3. I'm finding all 3 of these to be pleasant. This is a first. All the 12 previous episodes, I found at least 1 or 2. I think maybe 1 episode, all 3, where I was not so thrilled. But so far, all of these have potential for me. So I will be getting a little bit more of the woods from Bois Imperial. I like that there's kind of like almost like an ozonic quality. It's almost like, but I'm also picking up some ambroxan, which may be imparting that quality. It's not ozonic in sort of like a kalone sense, but there is like a salty element. We'll say that. Yeah, good stuff. All 3 are pretty good so far. So I think that it would be a wonderful time to bring in my cohort, Ryan, and soon we'll be bringing in both of our guests to get started on our conversation. Before I bring Ryan in, though, let's take a look at a couple more of the chats. I love Basil. I've been working with it a lot lately, but it can take over easily. It's one of those that I feel like either depending upon what it's surrounded by, it can take things over, or certain things can hide it. It's kind of mercurial in that sense. I'm not. Were we saying Bois Imperial is compared to Ganymede or Eau de Citron? I'm thinking it might be Bois Imperial. Hello, welcome. All right, enough tooling around here. We're going to bring in Ryan. Hi.
Hello, just how you doing?
Good, good. So this week I closed my browser and cleaned out, my cache and everything. I just closed it all. I made sure, like, okay, I'm not going to have a browser that I've had open. Maybe that was it. So we're in business here. I can see you, I can hear you. So it's excellent.
Oh,
So update us. What's been going on?
well, not too much in the past week, fragrance-wise, I guess. Life's busy for my part. My job is always very busy. But I guess if there's any fragrance-related update, I was one of the lucky few who was able to snag a bottle of Clandestine Laboratories' release of a Somme, which was last Saturday, I think. More's coming for those of you who didn't get, but stay tuned to his Instagram. He is trying to make it a regular release, a standard part of the collection, but because of the materials there, that's limited release. So I was very excited to be one of the few.
Yes, independent perfumers are often at the mercy of materials availability and consistencies or inconsistencies with materials. Mark will be joining me in the near future. I'm going to be interviewing him, and it's going to be a very special episode of Effluvium. That will be coming up pretty soon. We just have to set the date.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. I want to, I don't even know if I'll be here for it, but that's fantastic. I will die. It'll be great to see Mark go on video and talk about
it. We'll try to see to it that at least at some point, if you are available, we can also have you jump on, ask questions, and chit chat.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Okay. And I think this is also a good time to bring in our guests, should they be ready. I see Nick is on backstage, and Thomas, if you could go backstage as well. We'll start bringing you guys in, and we have some great topics here. One of the topics that was suggested by Thomas is pricing. Today's pricing in fragrances. What's going on? What's going on with these niche lines, these designer exclusive lines where fragrances are going from, take, for example, a 50 milliliter, 100 milliliter bottle, and it may be $300 or more dollars. It may be $400, $500, $700, $1,000. Let's explore that topic once we have our two guests come in. There's also another suggestion from Thomas about some recent IFRA restrictions and updates on usage, and how that will make an impact on some releases in the future. And then also the third topic is the marketplace. There are so many choices. We've touched on this a little bit in the past on previous streams, but I think that to dive a little bit deeper, there's definitely a lot more that we can talk about with that, and how that's affecting our ability to really know where to even begin and what to sample, how to process it, how to navigate through it, especially somebody who's new to the perfume hobby. Like, I can only imagine, like, I started 20 something years ago, and you had not even a fraction of what's out there now. And now today they're like bombarded from every direction. So yeah. All right. I see that both of them are backstage. Actually, I see that Thomas has his camera on already, and he is looking quite relaxed, and he seems ready to join the stream. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Thomas Earlygreek. Hello.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
I've been waiting for the moment where I could get you at a time that you're available to have you join us. You know that.
I have no excuse other than I guess I'm just a workaholic, and I work a ton. So
well, no taking and no giving because you're working for a living.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and I also find, frankly, just with all the sort of global events taken as a whole, that keeping my nose to a grindstone, I just find from sort of a mental health perspective is really the best way to kind of navigate this very peculiar whatever time we're in. So
yeah.
And I mean, it something's got to pay for all this bloody perfume. So I mean, anyway.
We're all going into debt, Thomas. We're all going into debt.
Going into debt. Going into it. I got a credit card bill. We can talk about that one. Yeah. There has to be a proportionate sort of like curve from like spending to paying down. That's in the process.
Well, blame it on these. I mean, I fortunately, but I just blame it. I mean, these new releases. It's just, my God. I mean, I always come back to this, probably because I don't see anyone mention it, but just the volume of fragrance these days is
yeah.
I mean, it's mind blowing.
Right.
I was at a little family social function, and somebody mentioned they liked the smell of. They're not into perfume, but they like the smell of. Oh, I don't know. I think it was pecans or something like that. And literally within 5 minutes, I had Googled. I mean, it's just nuts to me.
Nuts, literally, in this case.
Well,
it's just nuts.
Yeah, no pun intended.
And thank you for pronouncing it pecans and not pecans, because pecan's actually the indigenous American pronunciation. Pecan was something that derived out of that. Just a little side fact.
It's rare that I pronounce it correctly because there's a standing joke in this house that I don't pronounce things correctly at all. So I win.
All right, I don't want to leave Nick waiting. Nick is our special guest as well. Just as special as you, Thomas. Nobody is more special than anyone else here. Everybody gets a trophy. Hi.
What's up, everybody?
I want to make sure when we deep dive into these topics that all of us are here to kind of include our input. So it seems like what we're doing right now is we're going to start with the discussion on the saturated market. Where do these houses come from? They come out of nowhere. Like there is one new house after another. They don't even like stagger the releases. It's like, here we are, and here's 6 releases. What have you noticed, Nick, about this? In recent years, all of these new houses.
Quite personally, I find it to be very overwhelming. And like you mentioned earlier, for anybody that's just entering this journey that we're all on, I don't know how they're navigating, because I mean, I've been in it for a while, and it's too much. I mean, there's too much out there to explore, and just not enough time. And yeah. like you said, I mean, these houses, I mean, they're not content just to release like a couple at one time. I mean, they're just releasing a buttload, and it's nice to have variety. It's nice to have all of that out there to explore. But I mean, I feel like I'm never going to put a dent in anything for a long time to come.
What is do you guys have any theories as to why we're seeing so many new houses come into being? Like, where does this? Where do you theorize this originates? Because it was not like this even 10, 12 years ago. This is it's at a fever pitch now. Do you guys have any kind of theories as to why this is happening? They're opening, houses in all corners of the globe, and they're either hiring, perfumers from the big houses, like IFF Simries, or they're just, you don't know who the perfumers are. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually find it very mysterious personally, because profit margins on perfume are famously very high, but these are not large volume sales. So I understand how we've seen the increase in like artisanal perfume. Lots of people finding out that they can create an audience on Instagram for themselves and start to build a following for their smaller perfume business. That I understand. It's these houses that are hiring big perfumers, going through the big houses and just appear overnight. And then you hear about like them setting up a boutique somewhere in Dubai or something like that, that are insane to me. And the only thing I can think of is that these are just like, honestly, I'm baffled by it. I don't know enough about, I guess I don't know enough about the global economic market to understand that investment. I would understand if it's money laundering.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it almost seems like it's fly by night. And some have already come and they've gone in the course of 6 months to a year. And other people think that, these, a lot of people are under the impression that there are venture capitalists who are looking for a quick way to make a profit. And they understand that this may be the means to an end. So we call some of those VCP, venture capitalist VC fragrance houses, where, you're not even sure what kind of identity that they have. They come in pretty, standard, nondescript, minimal bottles. They're all, it's very much like as vague of a mission statement as possible. It's fascinating to me. Thomas, since this was your suggestion, I'm sure that you have a lot of thoughts in your mind as far as this phenomenon.
Well, I think on what could be considered a cynical perspective of mine,
safe space for it.
There must be some tweaking of perhaps an international tax code or a legal statute that allows for a commodity focused for-profit business to thrive for a brief period of time, and whether it's used actually as a loss. So there's, any mid-tier international finance guru will tell you that if you have a portfolio of assets, it's good to have a certain amount of those that are abject failures from a profitability perspective, depending on where the commodity you're selling from that specific revenue stream is sold. And I also think that it's a fairly kitschy and hipster thing to do, to amass a certain amount of capital with other, quote, acquaintances or friends and make a brand. I would equate it very much to sort of the watch industry right now as a whole.
Yeah.
I would argue there's never been a better time in the history of humankind than to go shopping for a wristwatch. Not only from a fashionability perspective, but from a mechanical perspective. And in many senses, perfume is the same. I mean, if you were to, I'd be fascinated if we could maybe get, 2 or 3 glasses of red wine into a French master perfumer, and ask him or her if 15 years ago they would have ever entertained being approached by a public persona independently and asked to even glance at a brief they had. I think Bernard Duchaufour, Pierre Bourdon, they would have laughed you out of the building. But capital is always changing, and the ways in which capital is made and transferred is always changing. So I think we're seeing what at times can be a very creative way of bringing new ideas to the market. And admittedly, I believe it's a lot of noise because of my age.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was to talk to my son or if I was to talk to my daughter, it's not noise, it's options, it's choices. And since choice now is privileged seemingly above all other attributes that humans supposedly share, maybe I'm sort of the dunderhead for thinking that it's noisy.
I think I feel like it's noisy as well. I think all of us have said in some capacity that it's overwhelming. I mean, you look at what the available options are as a consumer today, and I mean, you even take. I always use the supermarket analogy, and I think to a time where you would walk down any given aisle of the middle of a supermarket where you have all of the processed foods, and you'd have a suite of products, maybe a cereal brand, like Post, fruit and fiber, and it would be pretty striking that they'd have 4 different kinds of fruit and fiber. And now you can go down the cereal aisle and you can find 20 different kinds of, I don't know, Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes. There's all this flavor technology that's contributing to all of these different flavor options for consumption. And I distinctly remember that when I was younger, or maybe this is, a little bit affected by, the change in memory over time, when it gets sort of like, what's the word that I'm looking for? It gets overwritten over time with experience. But, even like 20, 25 years ago, being in a supermarket to browse or while you're getting your groceries was a less anxiety-inducing experience because of the economy of choice. And now
Totally.
we do not have the same economy of choice. We have a paucity of time and we have endless choices. And this is creating anxiety as a consumer. And that anxiety is fueling compulsive behavior probably. So we're like, well, I can't decide one. Fuck it. I'll buy 5. I'll buy all 5 of them. I think that this could be some sort of motivator in a way. Nick, I know that you have your finger on the pulse of a lot of newer brands, and I wanted to get your take. Have there been some newer brands, and you don't need to mention them by name because I understand that can get controversial, but have you found instances where you've run into some of these new brands and they have this whole suite of fragrances and you feel like it's a little suspect? It's kind of like, what's really the intention here? These fragrances they're just, something seems a little off. Have you noticed anything like that in the past couple of years?
Can you tell by the grin on my face? As we were, discussing this whole thing, one brand that I've come across recently, I mean, it just instantly popped into my mind. In fact, a friend of mine and I were talking about this yesterday over coffee. Yeah, this guy, I can't figure him out. He's contacted me a couple of times privately, and his whole manner of going about things, first of all, is suspect. It's rather annoying if you ask me. But his product, and to be fair, I have not smelled anything that he has done. But when you look at the perfumes, I mean, this guy, everything but the kitchen sink is in every single one of his perfumes. And he's charging a lot of money for them. And the feedback that I'm hearing is that they're awful.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that to me, it bothers me quite a bit. Just his manner of going about things, because this is how he's approached me in DM. He's like, which one of my fragrances would you be most interested in trying? So, the first time, I jumped on his website and I looked through them, and, I picked out, one, I thought I might like. And I was like, yeah, I think this one, might be good. It was almost like he was setting it up like, like a brand would approach a reviewer and say, hey, I want to send you like a bottle of something for you to review. That's how he kind of set it up.
Yeah.
And once I said that, he was like, well, I look forward to your order.
Well, that's a bit presumptuous.
Oh, how about that?
I was like, are you approaching everybody this way? Because there are a lot of people out there right now that are hyping this brand big time. But the majority of what I'm hearing is that the stuff is just awful.
My
So
goodness.
it's almost like at this point, I'm just so curious. I want to get my nose on this stuff just to see what really is the case here. But it's stuff like that. I mean, it's like you just have to wonder about these people and their methods. What kind of background do they have? They claim that they're the perfumer and they're putting together these creations and what really is the deal here?
Yeah. And the modus operandi too, influencer driven marketing, basically, cornering people who are content creators and influencers to give a positive statement on something. I don't know. I've been long opinionated on that kind of tactic of, I'm reaching out to you because I think that you would have some great feedback, some great input. And I personally have said, yeah, feel free to send it to me and I'll give my honest feedback and input, but it may not be positive. And it's fascinating how I just don't get things. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
You've had a couple of instances, right, where you've been sent things. I mean, I know that one brand in particular that you probably recall. There was like a little back and forth with that one, right?
Woodisue, yes, the infamous Woodisue, which just so I have no qualms about mentioning the brand at this point publicly, because I feel like there was some serious quality control issues with that brand. Having had some experience working with perfume materials, I smelled some of them, and I could tell that there was not a trained nose behind these fragrances. This is not a matter of my just saying they smell shitty, because that's subjective. It could still be an adequate fragrance, executed within, within the standards of how to compose a fragrance safely and within regulations, and also using skill. And I can think, well, this smells shitty, but I can also objectively say, but it is a fragrance that can be sold. And I wouldn't have any kind of anxiety, any kind of like, oh, this is kind of scary. That was a brand that I smelled something and I'm like, this is kind of scary. This is scary that this is being produced. This is being distributed to people to sample, and now it's being sold. And now the brand is being sold by Lucky Scent. And that's fucking scary because doubt. Oh, yes. And I doubt that there has been. Unless there's been dramatic developments in that house, and they decided to hire, a competent perfumer, which has happened. Regime de Fleur. They started off not experienced enough, and it was evident in their fragrances, which were, great segue, highly overpriced. And then they started to lighten up, and they actually hired experienced professional perfumers. and now they're a much more respectable house. But yeah, I wanted to actually point out, this is a very good comment here from Scented Moments. The niche market is already being affected by the conglomerate effect, and now indie is starting to bloom, but at the same time, you start to have shady brands who want to capitalize. Shady brands. Now, this can include, so we'll get to the pricing for a second. Now I'm going to go off on a tangent already. When I think shady brands, I think of, I mean, and I try not to be too opinionated, but I'm worried about quality control. I mentioned this with Wood Issue, but quality control. Houses that they have a product out there and they're selling, and retailers are willing, to pick up the product and sell them to consumers. But I have the concerns about quality control, and I'm looking at clone fragrances as well. I know that people have a huge affinity for them, but I'm really concerned about quality control. Thomas, what do you think about that? Some of these houses where you feel like, should I even put this on my skin? Is this going to be, is this something that I'm going to regret?
Yeah, I don't even go down that rabbit hole anymore. I have and I now just am, I'm just flagrantly conservative about it. I'm interested in well-established, well-trained brands, because I think not doing so is an absolute slap to the face to those who bust their ass to actually learn how to become a nose. And I know it's all fashionable these days to get on the bandwagon of this and that, and anybody can do what they want, and the world is your oyster, and all you need is enough positivity and you're gonna accomplish all of your dreams. Well, I'm here to tell you that's horseshit. And if you don't do the work, the product will speak for itself. And so I went through, I think, about a 10-month phase of dibbling and dabbling and doobling with all of these, I call them ad hoc, mildly hipster, whatever you want to call them, indie, what have yous. And I found most of them to be utter trash. And in fact, I just would rather hang out with a bottle of Curve from like 1999 and call the whole goddamn thing a day, because it's an utter waste of time. I don't have the time to, and this is, oh boy, as you can tell, I'm not very diplomatic about this subject, which is fine. There's too much diplomacy anyway.
Here. This is the live stream where everybody's coming in hot. This is already turned into like the get the soapboxes out.
This is exactly what I wanted to offer to the community, but have a legitimate conversation.
I really am a believer in the study of history and how wearable art, which what perfume in so many respects is, whether it be a $10 bottle of Nautica Voyage that I found at TJ Maxx, or a 8,000 half tola of some magical brew from Ensar himself,
a Riege Lador or two.
What concerns me is the flippancy, and the belief that the consumer is an idiot. And why? Surprise, surprise. I don't think I've ever been contacted by a brand, because, in my opinion, and I just say this flat out, no one really wants to do the work. So if you want to send me something, I'm going to give you both barrels. Why waste your time otherwise?
Yeah.
I mean, when did it become all right to pass everything? I have very little tolerance for this.
Oh, Lily, no comment on that one. That's all right.
I just do the work. Do the work. Don't worry about 8 releases trying to hit every demographic. Give me one goddamn decent bottle of perfume that I can wear and that I have an emotional attachment to, and there you go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Thomas. There are some houses that miraculously come out of the gate with a lineup that is impressive, but most of the time, you know, if a house debuts with a lineup of 7 fragrances, they're going to be, it's a red flag. It's like there's just too many. These just have been workshopped appropriately.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like indie perfumers, natural perfumers. If they have a whole bunch of output in a short period of time, how much real time and attention and development was put into each of those individually? That's when it's always suspect to me. Nick, you're opting out of sharing the name of this house, and that's and I respect that. Correct? You're not going to share this. Somebody wanted to know what house.
Well, I mean, somebody already called them out in the comments, so I mean, just go back and check the comments.
Did I share the comment?
Oh, I thought that's why you were laughing earlier.
Then we shall carry on and continue our discussion.
But you know
this is a shady live stream, gentlemen. This is a shady live stream. I mean, I agree though. I think, you know, so the one thing I want to pull out, because we're being especially hard on the indie scene.
Yes, please.
Is that hucksterism is endemic to this industry on the whole. I mean, the luxury industry is emperor's new clothes. It always has been. That's kind of Veblen goods in you know, in essence. So what I think we're seeing in the same way, and this has happened to like all kinds of art forms enabled by the internet and these new found ways of marketing things. You know, we're seeing unfounded competition across everything now that Instagram and Facebook and YouTube are opening up new avenues for people to market things. You're seeing a lot more just like, it's not just we're being overwhelmed by choice, but from the big brands who are hitting us with like, you know, 20 releases a year. And then we're being overwhelmed by all these like smaller people who are just kind of throwing their hat into the ring. Yeah. And, you know, what, 10% of them are good? Maybe, I don't know if that's a generous percentage, but it you know, like that's, it's overwhelming to me, but it's also, you know, as Thomas has pointed out, to flip back to the optimistic side of it, there's not really been a better time in as Thomas says, to buy a watch. There's not really been better time to buy perfume. It is, you know, there's something very like churlish about complaining about too much choice. Like I have too much good perfume in front of me to potentially buy. That is like the epitome of like the rich man's problem in like yes. right. Well, it is, you know, like my poor hunter-gatherer ancestor is looking at me from the great beyond and is saying like, what are you even talking about? You have so much scented water. I you know, I don't know. It's quite an interesting thing to start thinking about. But I agree with you. It's overwhelming and frustrating.
But also, I think that I'm more concerned about those new to like they have a newfound enthusiasm to fragrance, and they come into this. I think when you know, some of us who have anywhere between 25 to 2,000 fragrances in our collection, we've already went through those stages of discovery and figuring out, you know, what do we want out of this hobby? You know, whether it is that we want to wear and collect, or just collect, what our taste is, what brands we're going to follow. But somebody who's coming into this entirely new, and they have a lot of things being thrown at them. And so often it's like their first introduction to fragrance. And they've got some real whoppers in front of them. for
No,
what they're being introduced to.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, and
Yeah.
I think you know, every once in a while we circle back to the theme of how this community can be a little bit broken, and I think this is the case where, you know, you have people in this community who are very strong advocates and are very honest and genuine advocates for what they love, and then you have people who are just kind of hawking stuff, and this is their day job, and they're hawking this, and then there are people in between, and I think in this sort of glut of content across anything, it makes us, those of us who are recommending anything, had better take it upon ourselves as a moment of like personal integrity to say, am I recommending something that is either worth somebody's time, money in the scheme? When you have so many options, it actually puts greater demand on us to be more rigorous in our standards about what we're recommending, because you know, with that said, there's always going to be something better. So what you're spending your time and, at this point, $300 to $400 on a bottle of perfume on, it better be worth $300 to $400. And the perfumes that are worth $300 to $400 is a relatively narrow category. It shouldn't be something that we throw around willy-nilly, that like, hey, I kind of like this thing, go out and spend $400 of your hard-earned cash on 50 milliliters of this thing. Like, I don't know. That's my personal feeling about it.
And here is what I want, that not a single mainstream big fragrance influencer delivers, which explains why I've just about stopped watching YouTube or participating in it. I have zero problem with expensive stuff. It's fine. Rant and rave about your $600 bottle from, what's a high dollar brand that gets a lot of love? Boda the Victoria.
Bodicea.
Yeah. What's that? Blue Sapphire. Yeah. I've sampled it. It's a wonderful fragrance. And I think it's what, $1,100 a bottle. That's great, fine. But here's what I want. And here's what I think a lot of people want. We want to know, in your tiny little world, in your tiny little life, show me some emotion. Tell me a story. I wear this perfume because it really did X, Y, or Z for me personally. I want to know why. I don't want to know that it fills a room, or that it lights ladies' underwear on fire, or that it lights men's underwear on fire. I just want to know your humble reason why you go apeshit for liquid in a bottle that smells a certain way.
Are we in an age where people have the patience or the attention span for storytelling, though?
Well,
in an age of Instagram Reels and TikTok,
that is the whole problem, JJ. It's, you know, we're flipping through Instagram, we're looking at pictures, you know, we want to see pictures of beautiful, expensive bottles, and we're just liking. Nobody's reading anything. It's like, I feel like half the time I am completely wasting my time. You know, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it to fulfill this, you know, this creative, you know, need that I have. But I don't feel like anybody, or for the most part, I don't feel like most people are paying attention.
Or it could be that people have the capacity for attention, but the man behind the curtain, the proverbial, is manipulating the empires for which they're in charge for us to have a lower attention span, because they want us to be distracted so that we consume rather than reflect. And maybe there are some of us who are getting sick of it and we want more. And maybe it's up to us to insist on that. I was scrolling through Instagram, And the way that they're changing the algorithms to a point where every other thing that I scroll through is a reel. They're really pushing the reel, rather than a photograph with some text. God forbid it's 2 paragraphs of text. And it's just gotten to this point where I think that it's not the back end, which is, where we are, where we just don't care anymore. We just don't have, it is a manipulation. It's a social emotion. Well, it can be emotional as well, but it's a social manipulation. Sort of like, it reminds me of, Jaron Lanier, the theorist, the virtual reality genius, and his theories on these behavior modification empires. We know what we could find as more fulfilling, but we're being manipulated to be part of this hamster wheel, So Rachel here. Oh yeah. Did you, sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with all of that. It's, medium in the message and all that. But I would say, I hardly scroll Instagram, and I say that to anybody who follows and interacts with me on Instagram. I hardly scroll on it anymore. The only time I scroll on Instagram is when I'm like loosely interested in shopping recommendations, because I find that the Instagram algorithm is better at recommending things to me that I never knew that I wanted than any other site on the face of the planet in terms of that. But I think of it primarily as a store at this point.
Yeah.
That just happens to host content from the rest of us.
It feels more and more like that. Like a third of what you see are advertisements, and I'm with you. Sometimes it's like, wow, I didn't even know a product like that existed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to say.
Rachel, I wanted to address her question here. So how do we identify the chaff and use our purchasing power to improve? What do we do? So what's our role? Because we're some at whatever capacity, some of us more so than others. How do we guide people to identify the chaff in a way that's, not impolitic? And how do we, as just, a consumer and a fragrance lover, how do we do that? What are you guys' thoughts? Thomas, I'll point to you there, because I don't know.
Well, here's something that has mystified me, and I'm gonna embarrass him now, but that's fine. He can take it. So I know a person. Many of you may know. His name is Galen. He has a channel called The Etherealist, and he has a real talent for YouTube videos. An outstanding talent, and it seems completely batshit crazy to me that Fragrance Du Bois, Sergioff, Zaharoff, insert hipster brand perfumes to Marley Initio, the list goes on and on. It seems absolutely batshit crazy to me. They're not flooding his doorstep with free product. Because clearly he has talent. I mean, let's be objective here for a second, if that's still possible. Go to his YouTube channel and look at some of his videos, and you'll be left going, holy shit, this guy knows his way around an editing machine and a camera, unlike yours truly. So when I'm trying to separate sort of the wheat from the chaff, I will intentionally not purchase brands that, without any reservation, only ship free product to, well, beautiful people with 1 million subscribers. Because if your product has that much, and let's say something mildly provocative, if you believe that your product has enough testicular fortitude to take on the likes of LVMH, well, then put your bloody money where your mouth is and send it to the little guy. And see what the little guy can do with your product. After all, aren't you this big swinging house that is releasing these, mind-blowing, life-altering fragrances? That has always disturbed me. For instance, it's always disturbed me that, frankly, there just seems to be this real hostility towards thinking about what you're smelling.
Mm-hmm.
And the man, I think, who has handled this brilliantly, actually, is Roja Dove. He balances this personal narrative with his own sense of marketability. I think he's found a very good balance with that. Now, I mean, if I was to meet with the man, and which would of course never happen because I don't wear Versace shirts, but I would tell him sometimes he goes a little overboard on the beautiful people. But he really, 2 years ago, got into this, I think, really well, where he did that question and answer period. And yeah, you can go on and on about, well, is Roja Dove a dupe house? And is really it just all heavily influenced by his time at Guerlain and all this other hoo-ha? But you got to respect his honesty.
Yeah.
And, but then again, I mean, I suffer from a lack of filter, I suppose. Like I actually, which I'm surprised by. I don't know why people don't say names of these houses. Like, what's going to happen? I mean, someone's going to show up at your doorstep with a broomstick and beat you over the head. Like my perfume. I mean, what the hell?
Thomas, I can if I interject on this. Generally speaking, I think if there are some people who are level-headed enough to realize that this is in this free market of people who are sampling your products, people are not always going to have a positive opinion. And there are some people who don't have the emotional intelligence to handle that, so they can get hostile. And this has happened. And more than one person has experienced it, and it's unsettling. And I think that's why we give it a second thought before we out a particular brand or personality behind a brand or what have you, for fear that would escalate. And it's really unfortunate, but it happens.
Well, it does, but to me that simply it simply gives this sort of illusion that somehow a perfume brand has more power than it really does. I mean, my God, like, for example, I really respect what Perfumes de Marly has done. Shock? No, not at all. Perfumes de Marly take designer DNA and they juice the living shit out of it so it lasts all day. What's the big deal? It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Now
you got to hand it to them. They were able to. It's shrewd.
I had a travel size of Leighton. And, I thought to myself, okay, I need to get with the times. I need to wear this, try it out, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was okay. It smelled to me like a Hugo Boss thing from 2004. I wore it to work. And guess what? People said, holy shit, man. I'm not being weird here, Thomas, but you smell good, bro. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
I'm not being weird.
And which is essentially a perfume desert where men don't compliment other men on wearing perfume. It just doesn't happen. But it lasted most of the day. I mean, it was and I thought to myself, wow, I get it. I'd spend $200 on this because it attracts attention and it doesn't smell all that good. But when certain people come up to me and pay me a compliment, who doesn't want to feel good?
So I'm confused. Is that the chaff or is that not the chaff?
No, but it's this is what bothers me, is just this total lack of honesty.
Yeah.
I whatever happened to just being okay with not liking how something smells. Like, do you need to apologize for that? It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Have Nick and Ryan, have you ever felt like you were in a position where you had to kind of fake that you like something more than you do in certain situations socially, for to avoid maybe a dispute over it?
Not for dispute purposes, but I've had people very very generously send me samples of otherwise rare things that, you know, if you send, you know, look at the market value of what they've sent me, it's a lot, and they're sending it to me as a gift with anticipation and excitement, and looking forward to my enthusiastic reception. That's the implication of the exchange. You know, it's I hope you'll love it. And I feel in those circumstances very some relationships I have with people where I could be very blunt about something. Like, I don't think if Thomas sent me a bunch of samples and I told him that I hated some of them, he would care one whit. But if some people, I tend to err on the side of delicacy there. I've never been in a situation where a brand has sent me anything, because brands don't send me stuff. They don't. They just don't. Nobody's talking to me. Where I felt like I had to dance around that. Like, the only relationship I've had with any perfumer sending me anything is Mark Sage of Clandestine Laboratories, and I've told him what I didn't like about the perfumes in his lineup. I didn't like, and he was very receptive to that feedback, which is a mark of good character on his part. Being receptive to feedback is less than positive, and being able to take that in stride is a mark of a well-balanced individual, I would say. But yeah, that's it.
And those are the personalities, those are the hardworking and talented individuals who will, I do see success in their future, because they know how to handle those situations with grace, and to not take certain things, too personally. And I don't think that there are too many out there who are at the extreme of a few different personalities who we may have run into, trying to motivate us to buy one of their products. But they're out there, and it does make things a bit disconcerting and troubling. And yeah. We went over choices. We went over pricing. Thomas, I think we did go over pricing, right? It's pretty much wrapped up into the conversation. It's kind of implied, like, things are expensive, more expensive than they need to be. But IFRA, Thomas, you mentioned some newer restrictions. Are there some newer restrictions that you could share with us that have been in development in the past recent months or year or two, or just in general, what's happened in the past few years?
I don't know. All I know is that if someone ever asked me, why do you like vintage perfume? And the single answer is that I can apply it before work, and I still smell it at the end of the day. And literally, it's that simple. I God, for peanuts, found this old bottle of Eternity for Men. It was a splash bottle. And I remember when, my God, you could buy those for, I think it was like $45 at Myron Frank, JCPenney, whatever. And I remember back then very distinctly that you wore perfume once a day. You applied it and then went about your day. And the beauty of that was that you'd forget sometimes you'd had it on, and then you would sniff it in a very specific event. So maybe a conversation or an interaction with someone, or maybe you're trying to take a picture of something, or that scent stayed with you. And So I, as I usually do with all my perfume, over applied this eternity. And I thought, holy shit, this stuff is absolutely nuclear. And then I realized, wait a minute, I never used to think of it as nuclear. So I have this bottle of H24. I've basically drained it. And I haven't really drained it because I'm in love with it. I mean, it's fine. It's okay. But I drained it because you have to take it with you if you want to smell it at all during the day. And essentially every new release, like the new Acqua di Gio, Armani's still riding that horse, which is fine. Good for them. I mean, why buy a new horse when you've got one that works perfectly well? And it's this eau de parfum or something. The price has gone up, which pisses me off. But so I applied that. I got a little tester. Like 3 hours later, I'm like, where the hell's my Acqua di Gio? I mean, what is with this? So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that companies, very rightfully so, are more and more concerned about, lawsuits and all this other stuff about applying things to your body and breaking out into a rash.
But I often think that it's a ruse to get people to just buy more of it.
Well,
and in anticipation of like a newer release and a newer flanker, it leaves them wanting more. Like it's not even so much like IFRA stuff, but more sort of, leaving more to be desired and getting people to spend more money.
And that's one thing that really I've sort of given up on, because people get I've had brands actually DM me about this. I don't think I go over very well with perfume brands. I don't think they like me very much. They've actually said like for instance, I mean, like Amouage. I'm sorry, but new bottles of Interlude Man aren't the same as old Interlude Man. I'm not crazy. I'm not nuts. They're weaker. Like, it is what it is. They get real touchy with that. And I mean, why get touchy? I understand regulations change. Just be straight with it. There's another brand in particular that got, and I won't mention their name because boy, they did get touchy. I'm like, Jesus, I don't know. I'm just a perfume lover. I didn't mean to, get these people's hackles up, but they do. Oh no, we insist no reformulation. Why would we do that? Stuff gets reformulated all the time. It's no big deal. It happens. I mean, I get it, right? Like we all get it. I mean, materials change, right? Sandalwood harvests change. Crops don't have a good year. I mean, duh. Like we all graduated, I think, from high school, right? Right. So like, it's okay. Get over it. You can say something has been reformulated and is weak as shit now. I mean, why is that like, I mean, I don't get why that's so scandalous.
Well, one of the things I think about is, back in the day, did we really hear anybody talk about, like skin sensitivities to wearing fragrance? I mean, I know over a period of time, people have become more sensitive to that type of thing, but yeah. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. And, this whole idea, I mean, Thomas was right. We didn't think about the performance at all. We put it on and it just did its thing and we were good. It's only here recently that, we've come up with these, these terms like beast mode and, and that's what everybody's flipping out over. We just used to wear them and we enjoyed them. That was the end of the story. But now it's like, it's such a big flipping deal, but it has to be, because of all these reformulations, we pick up a bottle of Obsession now, or Opium, or whatever, and it's just not the same. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a valid thing now to think about, because they've taken something we used to be able to enjoy, and it's water.
My God, man. You remember Obsession when it first came out with the actual sprayer in the cap? That stuff, oh my God, 1 or 2 sprays of that, and you'd be
would choke you out.
Oh, you gone.
I had one of my best friends wore that, and I mean, we hated getting in the car with him, because he sprayed so much of it on. I mean, we were like nauseous.
Oh,
I mean,
that's why it's funny. I really love Koros, right? And I kind of make a joke about it. But I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I've got some old Koros, but I'll be damned if I'll do maybe half a spray of old Koros and then the new stuff. Because if you actually apply old Koros, you're going to HR immediately. You know where
No, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Vintage Koros is a room filler of epic proportions. Though, okay, since we're on this rant, I want to talk about the one edge case where the current formulation of the former older 1980s fragrance is actually much better performer than the original. Cartier Santos. The first formulation of that, there was many formulations across the 80s. It's evolved a little bit over that time, but the very first formulation of Cartier Santos did not last that long. It's a light performer, relatively speaking. The current formulation actually performs better than the vintage stuff. The vintage stuff is better though, but performance change.
This is, I just wanted to point out, Michael Anemicus, my grandmother wore Giorgio Beverly Hills throughout the 80s, but by the 90s, she was complaining that it wasn't the same. It had been reformulated. This is nothing new. This is a cogent point. This has been, I think that people have been discussing this in some capacity since the dawn of time. Things aren't like they used to be. Sort of, through the rear view mirror kind of principle of like, I remember, back in my day, I think that this has just been ongoing. I think in some cases, though, it is legit because you can make the comparisons between the two. But there's so many different moving parts to this. This is such a nuanced thing. I'm thinking, there's so, in some instances, it has to do with our blurred, reception. Our memories can be a little bit blurred. Our memories don't serve us exactly the way things were at the time. Really, the only concrete examples can really come to the fore, and you have to consider all these different factors. You have an older bottle, you have to consider what has chemically occurred over time with that particular bottle, what conditions, so on and so forth, because that can create a certain bias as well, because you think that smells stronger, but really there's some things chemically that happened over time that gives the impression that it may be stronger smelling than it is. Like the biggest example being Kouros. Animalis, which is the main base in Kouros, when you have aged Animalis, that thing that shit blooms over the years. Yeah, it marinates. There's a maturation period where some of those things get really rank, and you think, "Wow, that was really rank back in 1981." Well, if you're smelling one of those Charles of the Ritz bottles, that's been sitting around for a good 30 plus years. Things have happened. So what we're making a comparison is a fragrance, unless you 100% can guarantee with a fucking notary public that thing has not seen the light of day, that's been locked up in Fort Knox. There is a high likelihood that something has happened over time to create the sensation that it is deeper and richer and stronger, Yeah. But that being said, they still smell fucking captivating. Even that's why people enjoy vintage fragrances. Hopefully they're enjoying it with that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. He brought up Giorgio Beverly Hills. That's the only perfume that I ever remember being allergic to. I mean, every time I smelled that, it would just make me sneeze like 20 times in a row. I don't know
Thomas,
what it was about that particular one.
do you have a fragrance named Mon Mommies? What's Mon Mommies? I don't know anything about this Mon Mommies, Thomas, but apparently Duncan here wants to know about your Mon Mommies.
White, blue, and yellow art.
Yellow art on a box. I know there is a white, blue, and yellow art on a box would remind me of the Jean Patou Ma Liberté. That has blue, yellow.
But Mon Mommies, no.
Mon Mommies.
Ma Liberté, though.
That is a mildly stimulating name for a fragrance.
I'm wearing my Mon Mommies, feeling matronly.
More matronly than usual, gentlemen.
I wear them on bosom, my décolletage. He wants to know about your Mon Mommies, so I don't know. Ruminate on that one and get back to him, because he's trying to get you to remember your this particular fragrance, which he recalls sounds something like Mon Mommies. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. So we're gonna move on here. I want Nick to. We have about an hour or a little bit more to go. We never run just until 9. We run a little bit later than that, depending upon who wants to stick around. Want to give Nick an opportunity to give us a rundown of his experience at ScentXplore. But before we do, I'm going to revisit our first impressions here, starting with Le Scandalous. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. I can't say anything wrong about that one. It dries down wonderfully. I don't have enough bandwidth to even kind of articulate on that, except it's really freaking good. The Bois Imperial. Now I'm not into it. I'm not into it now. It just dries down very generic. It just dries down to very generic, kind of like crowd pleasing. This is my daily driver kind of fragrance. Like, this is a clean woods, clean blonde woods and ambrox kind of thing with a little bit of like greenness. It's pleasant, but it's nothing for me to write home about. And then the third one, which is Eau de Citron Noir from Hermes. Yeah, it's not as smoky as I expected it to be. You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of the dry down of yet another Hermes fragrance from the 90s, Rocabar. The dry down kind of reminds me a little bit of Rocabar. Out of the 3 right now, it's a tie between Eau de Citron Noir and Le Scandalous. And we'll revisit that again in about an hour.
You know what's beautiful about that Citron Noir? It was a total commercial flop.
Yeah.
So is cheap as chips right now. I mean, I've 200 ml bottles for like $80. I mean, so now is an absolutely wonderful time to love Citron Noir, because apparently people thought it was just horrid. I quite like it.
I like it too. I like the way that it dries down. It there is a little bit of interest in this citrus for a change. And I quite like it. And maybe I will get a large bottle just so I can lavish myself in it with abandon and not worry about it running out too soon. 200 milliliters, a big, huge bottle. That'd be a real trip. I don't even have too many of those. So we're going to direct things to Nick, and I wanted to hear about your experience at ScentXplore. I did it last year virtually. This year you were there in New York City. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so last year I did it virtually too, and I felt like there was a lot lacking there. It's just, this is the kind of event that you've got to be there in person,
Yeah.
You've got to be right in the middle of it and kind of feel the energy and everything. I mean, where do I start? I had a very enjoyable time. I was there strictly for the experience. I was there to meet people. I was there to, of course, discover some of the brands that I haven't, had a chance to get my nose on. And I think I checked all the boxes as far as that's concerned. This being the first year that they were back, in person. I mean, they're kind of doing this hybrid thing now, in person, and they're still doing the virtual. I think that they did a reasonably good job, organizing everything. There were some negatives. Um, you know, the space is a little small. It was cramped, so it wasn't always possible to get into some of the rooms and to get up to the tables and everything. So I think all in all, I probably only smelled like, I don't think I smelled half of what was there. I mean, to be honest with you. So that was really one of the only drawbacks to me, was that. I mean, we got there Friday, and we thought, okay, well, we had this idea that not a lot of people would be there. We kind of missed the big crowd. We'd get in there, smell everything we wanted to, and there were actually more people, I think, there Friday when the doors opened than there probably were Saturday for some reason. And it was one of those things where it was like, it was nice just being there with everybody, talking to everybody, but at the same time, it was a little frustrating trying to get up to the tables. And but I mean, at the end of the day, just being there in New York, first of all, I love New York. I hadn't been there in probably 25 years. So it was the first time I got to be there and to kind of do my own thing and just, explore the city. And then, of course, do the ScentXplore. But I don't know. It's just, it was a really good experience. I think everybody should do it at least once. Now, I did a little overview on my YouTube about the event, and a lot of the response that I got was good. I did get a couple of comments from people that were there that absolutely hated it. Yeah, I mean, they were complaining about it being too hot, too crowded. They bought VIP tickets and they weren't treated like VIPs. And,
oh God.
And I'm like, what were you expecting?
Right.
Did you want them to roll the red carpet out for you? I mean, basically the VIP was for the after party. I mean, that's all that was. You were paying more to be included in the after party, really. So I don't know what they were expecting. They were complaining about, the vendors being stingy, not giving good enough deals. So that kind of equates to me is they were looking for free stuff, or they were looking for stuff that was absolutely the cheapest that they could get it, So, that kind of I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I mean, I had mine, and and I asked for people to give me their opinion, people that were there. And but I think the expectation was a little unrealistic, if you ask me. Again, being the first year back in person, I mean, you put an event together like this, there's always going to be something that goes wrong. I mean, no matter how well you plan, I mean, something is going to go awry. And I think all in all, Max, Joe, Max Aroma, everybody that was involved with it, I thought they did a great job. And I would definitely go back again. I'm not going to let any of those negatives deter me, because I mean, I think you got to be there for the right reason. I mean, I wasn't there to get free stuff, we were supposed to get samples, so they give you this bag when you walk in, and you're supposed to go to all the different tables, and you get samples. Well, for some reason there were no samples, so that was another thing that people complained about. So from my standpoint, I have got so many freaking samples, it didn't hurt my feelings at all that I didn't get any more. It's like, I'm so backlogged right now, I don't care. Right. but that was something that a lot of people got butthurt over, and it's come on. I mean, maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but I think people need to, I don't know, just get some realistic expectations here. Give people a break. I mean,
Yeah,
they're putting this event together, to kind of bring the community together, and just give us something to look forward to and to share. Why are you going to bust their chops over it?
right. And also, what is the intention? If the intention of going to this event is to be treated like royalty as a VIP and to get a lot of free samples, then where does their true intention lie? I mean,
that's what makes me wonder, and then the comments made, the one person, and I don't mean to be calling people out, but they mentioned the fact that between him and his wife, they have over 400 fragrances. What? Who cares? I mean, I've got over 400 fragrances and I had a blast. I mean, that shouldn't have any bearing over, but it was almost said, with the intent of, it was almost like an elitist type comment that, I deserve to be treated, a certain way. And I didn't feel like that I received that. And so now I'm upset.
Well, it's preposterous to even suggest that the volume of fragrances that you have gives you any merit at all, because believe you me, there are people who have many, many fragrances, and I don't find much merit in their ability to bring to the table much discussion on any of them, or to really contribute much as a member of the community. So that's preposterous to me. Ryan, I noticed that you took yourself off mute.
Oh, well, I was always going to say is first off, this doesn't sound like my scene at all. So my commentary will be muted, but I was very curious what people paid for VIP access to then complain about it. And I mean, I would, it's not crazy for a VIP ticket. The prices in general for admission to ScentXplore, from what I'm seeing, are not insane given what event costs and tickets to any given show or concert would be. And I don't know that for the price of the VIP ticket, I would have expected a full red carpet experience. It sounds like the main perk of the VIP ticket from the description I just read was an open bar, which is, if you got the open bar, you got your money's worth. I feel like that's but anyway.
So Nick, were there any standout brands or houses at the event that maybe you weren't so familiar with that you got acquainted with and would like to recommend?
Yeah, there were quite a few. I had actually never smelled anything from Kieran, NYC, and they really market themselves as being a clean brand. So it was interesting kind of, getting to know their fragrances a little more. I did purchase the Santal Park from them. I really like that one. The Unique Key was, I had started delving into them a little bit. A friend of mine gave me a bunch of samples, but I really fell in love with Crush on Me. And there was a couple of more that, that I've managed to get a bottle of that so far. De Gabor. So what do you guys know about that particular brand? Are y'all familiar with them at all?
De Gabor, as in Ava Gabor, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Degabor.
Yeah.
Okay. No, don't know anything. Don't know a thing.
De Gabor.
I'm looking it up right now, even as we speak. I have
De Gabor. Okay.
So the perfumer is Gabriel De Gabor, and they've got some fragrances. One's called Genders, Leather Forever. He was an interesting guy to talk to.
I see now. I now recognize
the bottles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I recognize one particular
bottles.
They're attractive bottles. One particular release has the name Geisha Diva. Not so sure if I am thrilled about that name, but that aside, the presentation looks quite lovely. And you were talking about genders. I'm going to open up that one here. I'm just using Fragrantica for folks who are curious. And I see Gabriel Gabor is the perfumer, and this is a sandalwood heavy, spicy, floral, woody kind of scent. And the price point, it looks like it would be 300. Is that
it's a little up there. Yeah.
Can get back into that conversation again.
Well, I mean, there was a whole lot of that there. I mean, I would say a good, I don't know, maybe half the brands there, they were more on the pricey side. So,
sort of like high price point brands.
I knew going in there that I was going to have to put myself on a budget. So I said 3 at the most, and I walked out with 2. So I did good.
And what, pray tell, did you get? Would you mind sharing with us?
Well, I did. Yeah. The Kieran, I got that one. And I got Galleria by Milano.
I've heard some good things about that house. Yes.
Yeah,
I believe that there is one fragrance from that house that has mimosa, which I've been totally obsessed with mimosa right now. I just found a vintage bottle of Caron Fornesiana. Oh my God. It's still right here. It's like competing with this Bois Imperial. It's kind of like, it's such a contrast between something just so and like on the same arm. But yeah, there's supposed to be, I think, a mimosa fragrance from that line that I was curious about sampling. Did you try anything from Arquiste? I see that Dave.
Yeah, I just saw his comment.
Mentioned Arquiste. Yes.
Yeah, and that was my first introduction to that brand as well. Interesting guy to talk to. Enjoyed, his take on things, the inspiration behind the perfumes. I think in all, because again, there were so many people in there. I think I only tried maybe 4. Like Architects Club.
I've heard a lot about
probably the most well known. I'm trying to remember the other ones, but I mean, good stuff. The most well known.
Sorry about that. I opened up my phone and my own live streams playing on my phone. Sorry about that. Anyhow, I mentioned this one before because Rachel, I don't know if she's still watching right now. There's the most recent release, the Indigo Smoke, which I'd like to try. I tried Nanban, which is pretty nice. And what was the other one?
I have
Nanban.
Yeah. My favorite from the house is actually Sydney Rock Pool, which Rachel likes. Rachel backs me up on Sydney Rock Pool being the best aquatic. So why it's the best ever aquatic. That's my. I've been saying it for years. Nobody pays attention to me.
I do. Sydney Rock Pool kicks ass.
Thank you, Tom.
I gotta sample that one because
It is pretty good.
Sextus, though, from Jules et Mad. It's a Zavorkian composition. It's only available in 50 ml, which is ridiculous because I needed 500 ml. But that also should be on your sniff list if you like Sydney Rock Pool.
Oh, well, then I'll check that out. Sydney Rock Pool. I just that is everything I want in that.
Duncan asks if mimosa is a fantasy note. It absolutely isn't. In fact, a lot of mimosa accords are absolute extractions or distillations from the mimosa flower. So this isn't a mimosa like what you drink at brunch. Mimosa flowers grow on trees. They're these small yellow pom-pom-like flowers that are very pollenous and powdery. And it's just this beautiful heliotropish, like almondy yellow floral with sort of like, facets of ylang-ylang. And there are 2 different kinds. There's one kind that's often referred more so as mimosa flower, and then another mimosa tree that they call cassie. which is a different species. And if you're familiar with Frederick Malle, Un Fleur de Cassis, that's where Cassis Absolute really comes into play. But it is a true note, true flower, and naturals do come from the mimosa trees. But yeah. So it sounds like overall, Nick, it was you had a favorable experience. And would you go back again next year?
Oh, I'm definitely going to go back next
Okay.
year. You know,
I think I actually will next year. This year just wasn't in the cards
yeah,
for me. But
you ought to go. That would be fun to hang out because you know, most experiences are all about what you make of them. And you know, you got to take the bad with the good. And you've just got to, like I said, give people a break. I mean, but I think, yeah, overall, it was a great experience. Got to meet a lot of fantastic people. I mean, you know, beyond just the perfumers and the brand creators and everything, you know, meeting some of the others, you know, that I've been talking to for years on Instagram or, you know, Facebook, just getting to see them in person and like, you're a real person.
And you get to see what height they are. Yeah. And sometimes like, oh, I thought, you know, I thought you were shorter, but you definitely don't want to say it the other way around. I thought you were taller. You don't want to.
I'm pretty sure Thomas is 7'4". I haven't met him in person yet, but I'm sure that when I take my trip to Portland, I'm just going to be standing in Thomas's shadow.
Literally and figuratively.
Overweight, big dog. No. Shaped like a fire hydrant.
Thomas is a fire plug.
Actually, you know, an interesting aside, that if you ever that's a phrase I learned from a tailor. Oh, I won't get into that. But anyway, yeah. So shaped like a fire hydrant.
I want to use that in a story somewhere. That's quite lovely.
Itty bitty legs, very long torso.
I have short legs too myself, so I look very proportionate from the waist up, and then if you actually look at my legs, they're kind of stubby.
This is quite fascinating. It just makes me so much more
like the conversation just like
thrilled to like meet you all in person to see all of your, you know, disproportionate legs and torsos and stuff. I don't know exactly what my proportions. I think I do have like basically like the golden triangle, you know, perfect proportion. No, I'm average height, you know, he's average build for the most part. Although I do, you know, I did pack a few extra pounds, but yeah, I'm 5'9", and people always say to me like, "Oh, you're taller than I thought you would be," which is curious to me. But I digress. I think that I want to know what Thomas has been wearing lately, and maybe if you have had any recent new acquisitions. I know that you've sort of, you know, grinded to a halt with the collecting and stuff. But if there's anything new that is tickling your fancy, I'd be interested in hearing, even if it's samples.
Well, you know, I've always liked Terry Wasser's hair, and I figured I needed to. Well, no, I have. He's got a remarkable.
So, does it have a Terry Wasser hair accord? What is it, like hostas in it or something?
But I live in a Gerland desert. Literally, like. Anyway, so I've been farting around with this.
Oh, why don't we blow you up here?
Yeah, which one is it?
Around
Ensemble Mythique.
Ensemble Mythique. Mythique.
And this I've absolutely fallen in love with because it's just so complicated and weird. And I think actually does contain some sort of real ambergris, which I'm an ambergris fanatic. And then of course I've you know, it's cold out, so I do like my bombast. So I've been wearing the piss out of this blue,
do tell.
and this is absolutely extraordinary. This I heard about via. This I heard about via the channel Exotic Scents. I believe he stopped doing his English channel, but he's still doing the Hindi channel. And I have an absolute. I don't have the budget for it, but I have an absolute addiction to sort of Agarwood and all of its sort of oddities. And this has been absolutely just stupendous. In fact, I frankly can't believe that a lot of sort of the bigger YouTube influencers who really sort of are into the whole quote beast mode aesthetic, this should be on their radar like yesterday. You have to buy it either from Kuwait, Saudi, or UAE. There's no American distribution that I'm aware of, but it's absolutely stupendous.
What's the scent profile like, Thomas? What's it kind of beyond oud? What's it got going on?
Well, it opens sort of surprisingly, I thought, with like an authentic Cambodian fruity oud, which I think has got a healthy dose of some, I call them the super Swiss molecules, some super bergamot to grab your attention, sort of that duty-free effect. And really, it just essentially like hangs out for the first about 8 hours with this Ambrox boosted Cambodian fruity oud that is remarkable. And then, the first time this happened, honestly, I was a little shocked by it. It flips on its head and does this peculiar, slightly funky barnyard, stereotypically Assam oud funk dance, and then goes into a leather. And the leather, to me, is sort of your sort of softened ombre leather, Tom Ford leather. It also has shades of my favorite Tom Ford leather ever, which I refuse to pay. Have you ever worn white suede?
I've smelled it. I've never worn it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
White suede is just, I think was his best leather. It got no play because it's in this white bottle with a gold stamp. So immediately the bros were like, "Oh no, it's feminine, can't wear it." But white suede is, anyway, it reminds me a little bit of white suede. And also because it's made in the UAE, is not beholden to certain less bombastic restrictions, shall we say. So I put about 10 sprays of this on, which is way too much, but I really don't care. And I love it. Absolutely love it. And then also I've been, oh God, I don't know how or what is going, old Loewe Poron with the leather top. And a lot of, as an aside, a lot of the new packaging, not the new in the white bottle, but the newer packaging with the shiny front, contains the older formula, because which really warmed my heart when it happened, because there was a time when designer perfume, you'd get a new package but an old bottle, which I always liked because it seems sort of genuine. Like, we're trying people, but demand is so high, we're giving you like our back stock, which I don't know. It just, to me, it sort of humanizes things. But and Loewe pour homme, as you can see, I've pretty much, I mean, I've got plenty of this in reserve in the scent armory. Let me assure you of that. But yeah, this I've worn. My God, man, that is low. This is like 6 months.
Wow. Putting it to good use, that's for sure. Thomas, what type of watch is that? We have Dan asking, what type of watch are you wearing?
Oh, this is my, well, this is just a Laurier. This was their,
Yes,
their Neptune, I think, their 3rd generation. I bought this to test a theory. And what it has, so pragmatic, is it's utterly destroyed impulsive watch buying for me. I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent here on horology, although I could, but I love it. It's been great. I wear the absolute piss out of it. I buy watches to wear them. I don't buy them to put them in the safe or to show you how much. Yeah, you know, I'm not interested in all that sort of Rolex bro stuff. But it's been fantastic. And I just shine up the. It doesn't have a sapphire crystal. It's got, you know, good old plastic like the old school divers used to have. And what I do is I shine it up with. It's tough to find now. I usually have better luck finding it in a travel size. Crest regular toothpaste because it's grainy, and I just rub my little toothpaste on it and shine it up about every 2 weeks. It's fine. And the Miyota 9 movement, I tell you, boys, this Miyota 9 movement is a shocker. And I'm aghast at this movement. It's moody. It really doesn't like not being worn. So if you don't wear it for 3 or 4 days, you set it, you know, it'll have like a 35-minute swing, sort of as a way of saying, screw you, you haven't been wearing me. But I mean, I'm on day 4 with this, and it was 3 seconds off this morning. So Miyota's, I tell you, I love it. I mean, I love it so much. In fact, I mean, because as we all know, there's like what, 10,000 dive watches available for purchase for, I mean, anywhere. And I just love my little Laurier. So anyway, that's that. But this blue oud, I wish more people would sniff this because it's so good. I mean, if you don't like oud, you're not going to like it. So, you know, don't even worry about it. But if you really like bombastic, interesting oud fragrances, this is hard to beat. So,
and what's the price tag on that?
Let's see. I use a seller on eBay, and I think he has a store in Oman. But anyway, the price $160 for 100 ml.
You could do worse. That's not that bad of a price, honestly.
Yeah.
Compared to what else we've been chatting about.
I mean, I'm a real sucker for the whole Chris Maurice UAE vibe, and frankly, I mean, if you put, I don't know, this could be hyped in a different bottle with insert hype brand here, and you know, people would be paying $400 for it.
So Thomas, I just want to clarify which blue oud it is for the audience, because there are a number of fragrances out there.
So now, so the backstory on that is Arabian oud, which does have stores here in the United States, has an absolutely remarkable fragrance that comes as a 100 ml bottle with a 12 ml oil complement. In a moment of utter weakness, I have no excuse. I finally ordered. I just couldn't put it off anymore. I really couldn't. It just, I just had to have it. So that's on the way, assuming the ferries at FedEx don't break it. But this is the, and let me get the name right here because I butcher, Abarim al-Karashi. And I believe that this perfume house is related to the other al-Karashi, who has a much older perfume house in the region. And I think there are two brothers. And one brother does this and the other brother is in charge of the other or something like that. Where's the box? What the hell did I do with the box, gentlemen? Oh, hold on a minute. Here it is. This will help. There.
Yeah, look at that.
And it's just, I think for the price, I mean, I think I would probably call it my find of the year so far.
Wow.
Quite lovely.
But again, I say that with a little trepidation because I don't know many people who really are into dramatic Gulf-centered fragrances. And this is definitely made for the Gulf. There was not much thought given to sedate Western noses with this. This will hair on your chinny chin chin, which is how I like perfume generally.
I know that for certain. Lately, I've just been all about like mimosa, aldehydes. Like, I just been getting into like old perfumes, really old perfumes, carnation. Like, I was just mentioning Farnesiana, which
That's
is
glorious.
This is sublime.
Oh,
This is sublime. You got to get the bottle that is in the yellow box with the grass growing at the bottom. This is the most beautiful mimosa scent. It smells so divine. It has like hay, black currant. It's a little vanillic, but not exceedingly so. It just smells really rustic. It's just a beautiful, beautiful stuff. This was released, oh God, I think in the I have it on my phone. I can look. It's one of those, hallmark fragrances of the early years of the industry. So let's look. I think of 1940s, right? Yep, 1940s. Around the same decade that had L'air d'Automne and Bandy and Venver and Maglif and all that kind of stuff. I also picked up Wild Antelope, which is in transit, but I found it for $25 for vintage.
No.
You don't always have to spend a lot of money on these.
So can I rant about this for just a second? Like, just a second. For anyone new watching who, like, looks at people's vintage perfume collection and goes, oh my God, you guys must be millionaires. If you have patience and time and learn the details of actually what you're looking for, vintage perfume could be one of the most accessible ways to get into perfume because it's so inexpensive. Keep in mind, so much of this old stuff, when it was sold, samples were actually a lot of times mini little bottles. So, for instance, Loewe Pour Homme, if you're like this here, this is 100 ml, and Thomas said it smelled good. Well, I don't want to spend, but what you can still find this for about 100. I don't want to spend that blind buy on a bottle. you can pick up a 5 ml of this all over eBay for like, I don't know, $7, $8.
Yeah.
And
Get the samples first. That's what I did with the Farnesiana. I was like, I'm not going to invest any money until I know whether or not I actually like the stuff.
it's like vintage Coros. Oh my God. Oh, hey, bro, do you got that Charles of the Ritz bottle? Can I get a DQ? Coros, they have these little 15 ml bottles. And let me assure you, if you get one that hasn't gone bad, that will last you the rest of your bloody life. That's all you need. You don't need 100 ml splash bottle of Charles of the Ritz Coros, unless you're on some sort of like, ego-filled, emasculated bro trip and whatever. But 15 ml is perfect.
Yeah. And also when we get back to like all of these, maison du jour that are out right now, that my argument is, definitely sample everything, get samples before you commit. But I would hazard to say, for all that's out there in the saturated market right now, you could do no worse. It would behoove you to decide whether or not, if you're going to drop $200 or $300, should you be dropping $200 or $300 on a new release that might be, and this involves a little bit of time, you're on your fragrance journey. You have to kind of, figure out like what has been out there. Maybe the $200 and $300 are better spent on, it doesn't have to be the most outlandish thing, but an older fragrance that has stood the test of time, that maybe you could spend $200 or $300 on that. And it's more of a singular experience than maybe this house's version of a sandalwood, or this house's version of a rose, or this house's version of, just fill in the blank. And that's, to me, is something like, Farnesiana, or this example, which I'll tell you a little bit of story about getting this version of Côte Chypre from the 80s. This involves doing a save search on eBay, waiting until somebody decides to do an auction. Don't do a buy it now. Resist the compulsion. Wait, even if it's months.
Yes.
Wait for an auction to come up. You're going to get it probably for a lot less on an auction. And that's what I did here. And this is gorgeous. This is, some people say, it's not exactly like the original version, the 80s version. I'm not going to get into that argument. This is a beautiful piece of history to me, even if it's the 80s version. I got it for $100. $100. Because I waited. Yeah. And then the same thing with this. Estee from Estee Lauder keeps coming up, buy it now for $299. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 5 different save searches on eBay with so many different combinations of Estee, vintage, Estee Lauder, put in quotation marks, put it in all different orders, until one day, months and months down the line, it comes up for sale for $80.
Oh, well, that happened to me actually 4 days ago. It's not even close to a full bottle, but I have always wanted an old, and by old, I mean old, gentlemen. Like, we're not talking, like, we're talking, let's roll back the clock. Let's keep it going. I've always wanted one of those old Eau de Hermes flacons. It's in a It looks like it's been through the wars, but I found it for $29. Hopefully,
that's insane.
I mean, hopefully it makes it here from Florida. But whatever, it was $29, and I'm as happy as I'm ecstatic about it, because anyway, I'm a Eau de Hermes nutball, but
we know that we are part of a select group. I ever since I walked into that Colonial drugstore 10 years ago, and the lady in there said, do you know anything about this? And she handed me the bottle, and she sprayed it on a strip, and it was just all over for me after that.
No, I know. I so look forward to seeing this old bottle. And this is where I also get, I honestly, I'm a total softie. It's so nice to like think about the history. Where's this bottle been? You know, it's got these little tears on it. Where did they come from? Who's had this? I love that stuff. It's so,
yeah.
I don't know. I know it's very Pride and Prejudice, but I'm all for it.
Nick, I wanted to loop you into the conversation now. I know that you don't, do a lot of vintage, but you have some. I know that you do, and you appreciate a lot of classic scents, and we bonded over some of those. Have there been any really good scores that you've added to your collection where it's like, yes, I didn't have to spend a lot of money, and now it's in my possession?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I've kind of gotten off that kick a little bit here lately because I've been distracted by so many other things. But yeah, I'll kind of like every few months, and it's mostly like looking at your page or, there's quite a few in the community that, are always featuring those older, vintage fragrances that kind of intrigue me. So yeah, you'll start me down a rabbit hole of trying to locate some of these. But here lately, I think the last one that I picked up was probably the Jazz, because I wanted that version of the bottle.
Of course, that bottle is sick.
But
so
yeah,
cool.
I love that. I mean, I just sit there and look at it. But I think that's the last one that I picked up. Yeah, I've become like I've been super distracted here recently. Again with all the new stuff out there.
Yeah, all the new stuff to have to wade through. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I think that's the last thing that I've really bought.
Well, that's vintage. And how much did you have to spend on that? You didn't have to spend very much for that one, or?
I think I picked this up for, I think it was $74.
That's actually not that bad at all.
I didn't
for
think
those
so.
older.
I mean,
no, not at all for those older bottles of Jazz. I mean that really has that's been injected into the hype machine in recent years. So it does go for a lot more than that. We have somebody in the chat here, Musings of a Fraggot. I'm just the type of person who doesn't feel like taking the time for vintages. Just like with Slumber House, I just don't like the chase and would rather buy something readily available. Hey, it's all good in the neighborhood. It's like, it isn't the type of thing for immediate gratification. And if it is, you got a fuckload of money to throw it around, because a lot of it is just really expensive and it's super, super risky. You can't guarantee what you're going to get is going to be what you're hoping for, even if you're familiar with the scent, because you don't know if it's gone sour, gone bad. So yeah,
I will say vintage, which I don't buy as much vintage anymore, but I went through a vintage phase. Vintage can be very cheap if you are smart enough to look for like the stuff that nobody's paying attention to, the off the beaten path vintage gems. And there are plenty of those to be found. There's plenty that can be had relatively cheaply because nobody's looking for them. I mean, obviously, you want to go for the Guerlain vintages, you're going to be paying through the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of fun stuff to be had in the vintage catalog that is not, under $50 a bottle, because nobody cares about it. And some of it's really good. Just like today, we have plenty of stuff on the market that nobody's paying attention to that's very worthwhile. In the dregs of the past, there was plenty of stuff that was very worthwhile that nobody much valued.
Right. Do you perhaps have an example that you'd like to share with us, and thusly change the watch the prices go up as soon as you share?
Well, here's two, like, vintage Avons can be a fun
Hell
thing.
yes.
That's like so, you know, shout out to Scented Devil, you know, he who loves vintage Avon. And you know, what is it, like Avon leather that came in the boot
Yes.
is
My dad had that.
yeah, is delightful stuff. I have a big splash of like Avon lime, which I think is a boot. So like there's plenty of stuff to be had in that. So like Avon is the thing that comes to mind in that way. I know there are some others that I've tried because people in swaps will send me all kinds of random things that I'll like spend a month or two with and get to know and then move along that are not sticking in my mind immediately right now. But there's all kinds of wonderful gems back to dig through back there, because I think that was the era in which you know, even the stuff that was a little bit rougher made from the vintage past is they were using some very nice materials in most cases. Even the drugstore stuff, like the drugstore materials of the 80s, are stuff that like we would now treat as like, oh, you're using like high dose, you know, like
Yes.
So
get like an old bottle of like Revlon Jean 2 or something like they have some pretty good ingredients for how cheap they were selling. I mean, they were selling for like $10, like Sierra, like, and then I have like some of the Avons here too, like the bottles, even if they're not like the novelty bottles, the original bottles they kick ass, like Clint. Look at this stuff. This is you know, if you're into those Aramis type scents, this is like a much more like 70s version of Aramis, a little bit more animalic, and it's like a big old splash bottle. Look at the way it's written on there, Clint, and Clint,
Yes.
and Cordovan from the 80s.
Yeah.
This stuff will knock your socks off. Like, look at the color of that orange. This is like midway between a Lagerfeld cologne and like red Giorgio for men. They're cheap as chips. Like I get $8, $10, $20 max. It is insane. They don't get any hype at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
And they're fun to collect.
Now I got to go find a bottle of Cordovan.
They're fun to collect. They're so, I mean, even if you're not going to wear them all the time, it's just like Derek, the Scented Devil, he has the most impressive collection of Avons. Like, he inspired me to like I went on a bender for a month of Avon, and I still spent less than I would for like a lot of releases, you know, like full retail. Like, it was like I spent $100 and I had like 12 different Avons, and they're all super cool, like with these bottles that like, there's one called Weekend. I mean, I wish I had all of them with me. I should just do a show and tell sometime, but they're sick. I love the Avons. So much fun.
I just found so one just came to mind, and I know Thomas will back me up on this. Bogart Witness. Witness.
Yeah.
You could get, I'm looking at eBay right now. Prices for this are nothing. Just a delicious cinnamon heavy fragrance. Great for winter, great for fall. Such an easy purchase, such an easy wear even now. It hasn't dated that badly at all. If you're concerned about that sort of thing. I'm not, but I think you could wear that very easily today without any worry. Lovely stuff.
Absolutely fantastic. I wore that last week. Witness. Oh, look at that. Oh my God. There's
and Obosan Futuros. You get this under $20. It smells so good. It kicks the ass out of so many I would much sooner wear this than so much of the bilge that's being released right now. I'm being totally snotty right now, but this stuff, it's so much more fulfilling to me than I mean, of course I love a lot of current releases as well, but I'm far more fastidious about them. And there are just certain things where it's like, I'm more in the mood to wear Futuros. I'm sorry. You know, that almost like cinnamon apple pie kind of feel over this strange fougere animalic chypre hybrid kind of thing in the dry down. They're so bizarre, but so wearable too. And the bottle, like, what? It's like, is this something out of like a David Cronenberg set? Like, what the hell is going on here? Like,
I mean, I don't know.
But this is the fun of it. This is the fun of it. It doesn't always need to be about like this, like, oh God, am I going to be able to afford that $300 bottle?
No. And the other thing that people sleep on is vintage aftershaves.
Yeah.
Vintage aftershaves, you decant that into a spray bottle and you got yourself a standard, still is going to perform better than most eau de toilettes today. Like I had a Quorum aftershave, like deep vintage Quorum aftershave. That stuff, I didn't need the full concentration of Quorum. That aftershave was booming all throughout the day.
So I picked up 4 bottles of Quorum aftershave. I think they're 30 ml or something like that. And you are exactly right. I'm set for Quorum. Like, you don't. For instance, the Unicorn Dunhill 30.
Yep.
I just have it in the aftershave. I have a lot of it in the aftershave because it's literally an eighth of the price. And I can live with that because it's just magnificent.
Yeah,
and
I have Dunhill 30, Dunhill Blend 30 in the aftershave too. I've had the other bottle. The aftershave is just as good. Go for the aftershave. It's beautiful stuff.
Oh, it's remarkable. Oh crap, gentlemen, I've got to fly.
Oh, such a shame. And I wanted you to be part of our backstage discussion so we can really dish the dirt. Oh,
but I'm just
phooey.
Dirt. I don't have any. Me and my seltzer water.
So do you have to leave? Don't you have at least like 20 more minutes? We can wrap it up here. And then we have a backstage. That basically means we're no longer live. And when we can just shoot the breeze with each other, you know?
Oh, all right. Why not?
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, then, I think I'm gonna revisit the 3 first impressions, which now just seems so like after having that conversation, I'm just going to be a little bit more cynical about them probably. Low scandalous. No, this could actually, this fragrance could have fit square in the middle of the 80s actually, and I love it for that. It's a great oak moss dry down actually. Like, I mean, if they actually couldn't use all that oak moss, what pray tell did they do to make it smell so oak mossy? Something to ponder. Great stuff. Oh, and there's like IBQ, isobutylquinoline, and vetiver and patchouli. I like it. Very nice. And then the Bois Imperial. No, I don't like. Actually, I think I'm gonna spray Futuros over it and get rid of it, or layer it and see if it improves it. That's a lot better. And then Eau de Citron Noir. Yeah, if I can get this for a good price, hey, why not? I like it. It's a shame that it wasn't successful. It actually seems to perform better than H24, believe it or not. Thomas, don't you think? I mean, Eau de Citron Noir actually it actually performs for given what line it's in. That's kind of surprising, but
I'm a real Hermes fanboy, and so I while I do love my bombast, I actually only wear bombastic fragrances out of the house. Hermes is probably my number one worn brand at home. I absolutely love how they I mean, God, a 200 ml bottle of that, that's actually, I should add that to the list. It's silly not to have it. It's inexpensive enough now that And the testers are showing up, which always, I try to get a tester because usually those are older bottles.
Yep.
And well, that's another one of my harebrained theories, that the first run always usually has more legs than ones down the road. Staring at you, Terre de Mez.
Yeah, I still have some of my original bottle of Terre de Mez from 2007. And I have compared it. And here we go again. Yeah, it's
I love Terre de Mez, but I think I'm more in love with a Terre de Mez that has gone to bed. And yeah, I've got.
But they didn't go. They didn't go. It didn't go to bed to sleep, though.
No, it went to bed to disappoint the living piss out of me. I've got a 100 ml bottle that is macerating. I've used half of it, and I'm not going to bust it out. Let's see. I haven't worn Terre de Mez in 3 months. I'm going to give it probably another month and see if that fixes the problem. Because it's a goddamn shadow of its former self. I mean, I'm sorry.
Ooh, you said that phrase, that the shadow of its former self. Oh no.
and I understand why they're doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get it. There's so much product. A lot of people don't have scent memory for this, and a lot of people now are very touchy about, quote, signature fragrances. But let me tell you that what people forget is that all of these old vintage favorites that now, essentially it's like a competition who can get what vintage fragrance. They've made it 30 years down the road because people wore them every bloody day. Mm-hmm. And they didn't worry about sampling whatever was new because it wasn't theirs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm just a fuddy-duddy, and I realize it's totally not the way it is now. But I wish we could hear more personal conversations about why someone wears what they wear.
Say no more. There's one man that you should have a conversation with, and his name is Al Manzano. Al Manzano. He'll tell you all about his relationship to fragrance. I think some people who are in the chat watching know who Al Manzano is, but yes, he's lived through a lot of these fragrances. He's 72, I think, so he has a lot of tales to tell. He was in the disco era, so Al Manzano. So I think we're going to wrap this up. And we're going to go backstage. And next week we have Rudy of Time to Musk Up. And Ryan, will you be joining us next week?
I should be able to join next week. Yes.
Lovely. And then we'll see who we have for another panelist. We'll have 4 of us again. I think this worked out well. I think 4 is perfect. 5 might have been a little bit overwhelming. So I think it worked out for the best tonight. Yes. He is the man, Al Manzano, and he has a wonderful full head of hair.
But it is it's as wonderful as Terry Voss's.
No.
Guys, look at me. I got hair envy. I mean, how
about hair envy? I'm wearing this because I didn't properly shave my head. I'm going to eventually start looking like Jeffrey Tambor. So I need to keep the cap on until my lazy ass actually shaves my head. Oh, look at that. That's what I get for trying to straighten this hat, looking at myself on here. I'll just leave it like that. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. This has been a wonderful turnout with the audience. We've had 40 to 55 people throughout the entire live stream, which is exquisite. Once again, I'm just going to ask one more time. I'm not begging you. I'm just... I don't know, just asking for a little favor to buy me a coffee. buy me a coffee. I'm going to send the link one more time. This is where you can buy a coffee. This is helping me to upgrade for these live streams so that I can have more robust live streams. I could have cool intros. We can watch videos. We can have music. I can show different things that are not immediately within, here, like show a screenshot, all different kinds of stuff. The possibilities are endless. So if you could help me out by buying me a coffee, it would go towards that kitty that will allow me to buy a paid subscription. So until next time, we will be back again Tuesday. What is it? Today's the 13th, so that will be the 20th next week with Rudy, Ryan, and myself. So see you then. Toodaloo for now. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.